All right, we got things running here, so we will get going. All right, so they're going to cover something called demand planning here, which is kind of an odd concept, but demand planning encompasses the activities of forecasting, order planning, determining outside warehouse requirements, production balancing, and spare parts. So it's not really demand planning. Telling, you're not saying, well, other than forecasting, I guess is demand planning. The other is stuff is talking about meeting the demand or supply planning. Demand management is balancing customer demand requirements with the firm's capabilities on the supply side. So capacity is the one versus demand. So hopefully your demand way outstrips your capacity because then you can make lots of money. The development of a consensus regarding the ability to match the requirements and the capabilities. So this is between marketing, sales, purchasing, production, getting a balanced plan, an agreement upon a synthesized plan. So that's what they're calling demand planning. So here's the process. This is the SOP meeting, the sales and operation planning meeting. Analyze the demand, review sales history, data cleansing, ABC analysis, agree on assumptions, the forecast, the models, the events, produce the forecasts, usually produced by the marketing or sales folks. Make adjustments based on sales history, data cleansing, etc. And then hold the review, which is the SOP meeting, where you get everybody on board from purchasing, production, sales, customer service. Like, here's the plan that we're going to produce based on the demand that we have. So alignment of plan, key stakeholders must work together to coordinate demand management. So there's natural biases with conflicting incentives. So the traditional conflicting incentive is sales wanting everything on the shelf so they can sell it right away, which means you have a ton of inventory. And the materials folks saying, we're measured on inventory turns. Common assumptions regarding the demand planning process need to be agreed upon ahead of time. So events such as larger than normal customer orders have to be shared with the groups, especially those in purchasing and production. So you make sure you got parts to build it. Stakeholders should also be measured and rewarded based on the accuracy of their forecasts. I don't think we do that here with our divisions, but accurate forecasts are tough to do. So, but you do need to measure them. And then you need what if scenarios. If the forecast goes up, if the forecast goes down, what's the sensitivity there? Execution of the plan, communication. Once the plan is complete, purchasing needs to be able to share it with the suppliers. So we do this with our EDI. We have the forecasted, or we don't have a forecast per se. What we do is we've got an order backlog that we show them. It would be good if we had a forecast, but a lot of times suppliers want to hold us to that forecast. If we don't meet it, they want money. CPFR, what we studied in 2B1 yesterday, is invented by Walmart, and it's having everybody use the same MRP system, and everybody can see everybody else's inventory from customer all the way down to tier 6 or whatever. Supplier commitment. By sharing demands and providing regular updates, suppliers are more likely to commit to the plan. They can see the data that we see, so they can understand where we're coming from. And suppliers are more likely to collaborate on improving processes and materials that will help increase demand. So once the plan's been executed, it should be reviewed at least monthly to ensure it's in line with actual market conditions. So usually you'll put together an annual plan, but you want to review it monthly to make sure that your assumptions are still correct. Actual and projected sales and costs. So how accurate is your forecast? Operations and suppliers should also provide information on capacity or the ability to keep up with demand. We do this kind of regularly and report any extra capacity that could be used. So some questions, were there any constraints that kept plant operations from reducing according to plan? And usually there's a whole laundry list there. And were there any logistical constraints from getting the parts to the plant on time? Adjustments to the plan. Feedback from the stakeholders can be used to make the necessary adjustments. If supply exceeded demand, promotions or pricing adjustments can be made if you're dealing with retail. And if demand exceeded supply, does the supply base have additional capacity? And you don't need to know capacity on every single component. You need to know capacity on the key components that are the bottlenecks to upping your production. Is there a second source that can be tapped if you don't have the capacity? So we're going to get into some forecasting stuff here. It's covered more in section C. But simple moving average, I'm sure you guys have had this in class a few times. Determine how many months you want the average to be. Then you sum up that many months of data and divide by the same number. So 4-month moving average equals 4 months of demand data divided by 4, etc. And the more you sum, the flatter the curve. So as you see here, the data is the blue line, very up and down. And 4-month moving average is the purple line, which is much flatter. And as you go from 2 to 3 to 4, it becomes flatter. Level loading, also referred to as a production leveling or level load balancing. Balance throughput rates of activities within a process. So manufacturing production line, assembly line on our trucks has got to be level loaded. Balancing a process reduces the non-value added portion of the process cycle time. So you can only move as fast as your slowest element on the line. And a level loaded master schedule produces the same number of units per week or per month. So what you do with the master schedule is you try to level out the demand. And really, what you should be getting to is a lot size of 1. So you're only producing for orders. But if you're a make to stock kind of company, you're going to have to make some forecasted units and put them on the shelf. And that's what they're talking about, leveling out the demand. You're building some forecasted units in anticipation of selling them. But you want that constant hum of the production line and producing so many a day because it's just more efficient that way. Production leveling process steps are balanced through consideration of their takt time. And it's the desired rhythm of the process, or the average time between the start of the production of one unit and the start of the production of the next unit. So on an assembly line with trucks, the takt time is the start of production on truck 10 and then the start of production on truck 11. So that time between from when truck 10 starts to when truck 11 starts is the takt time. Setup reduction is a key means of reducing cycle times. So usually if you have to come in and do setup for equipment at certain stages, that's usually what slows things down. That or test. All right. Based on the following data and using a 5-period simple moving average, what would be the predicted demand for January the following year? So 5-period moving average. And you got down to December. So what you're going to want to do is add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these ones here. and then divide by 5. And my guess is we've only got a couple below 200, so it's going to be 200 and something. I would guess it'd be like 203. It could be 215. Maybe I'd go with the 215 answer and see what these guys do. B is the 203 answer. But anyway, that's how you get to it. Did add this label. Well, maybe not. All right, one more here. Acme Limited is in the process of reviewing its demand plan for the following year as its production facility employs a level production strategy. Here's the initial plan. This is sales. This is how they plan on meeting them. Notice they've got a level production schedule. I mean, it's just been informed that one of Acme's retailers is planning a promotional event in July that it forecasts will require an additional 27,000 units. There's no inventory in stock for the beginning of January, and a maximum inventory is 26,000 units. In order to maintain the production schedule, minimize inventory levels, and meet new demand forecasts, how many units should Acme increase its monthly production by? So in July, it's going to need an additional 27,000 units. So you're going to have to spread that out over 6 months. Although they look like they're spreading it out over 9 months, which is weird. You need it here. I would say you have to spread that 27,000 over these 6 months. So let's see what these guys are saying. Units demand by 3,000. There are several ways to approach the problem. Perhaps simplest is determine the total demand for the 9 months and then subtract the total planned production. See, I think this is wrong because you need the parts in July, not September or October. So this would assume that the parts were due in October. And then you divide 27,000 by 9 and you get 3.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than dividing it by 9, because
Yeah.
you're gonna have a deficit of a few thousand in July, and sure you're gonna get those later, but you need
Yeah.
them to be on the shelf.
I think what they meant to say was they want these in October, not July. But I mean, that's basically the way you handle the problem is you look at when you need the parts, you don't have any inventory to start. So then how many months do you have to build them? And then you divide that extra by that many months. All right. There are some questions out there. Let's go do them. And we will cover answers at 2:25 unless you guys get done early. So 2B2. There's only 6 questions. And some of them got some math in them. So go ahead and get working on them. All right, we're gonna have to go over some answers here real quick. Number one is Delta 3-month moving average. You add all three of the last three of them up because they want to know October. Equals 576 divided by 3 equals 192. Two is Alpha. Low production means level production for each period. And since we all available, we can assume it will be at 0 at the end of the year. And we have 24 units in inventory. 480 divided by 12, and you get 40. You can also look at it and say this 0 inventory will kind of point you in the right direction of only 2 answers. 3 is Bravo. Average cost per order is calculated by determining you have to divide by 25,000 the fixed costs that are given in annual. And that gives you $36. And then you add that to the per unit costs that they give, and put 135. And 4 is Delta. Problem perhaps the simplest to determine the total demand for the 6 months and then subtract the total planned production, which gives you a production deficit. And January to September includes June 6,000 is 24. I think this is another one where the problem is off a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought this would be under 5 months, but
Yeah, because the question isn't clearly worded that way. Then you look at the answers and they're all in even numbers, so it's like, oh, okay, maybe they mean 6 months. And then 5 is Bravo. Several ways to approach this one. Total demand for 10 months and then subtract the total planned production. Gives you the deficit from January to October. And current planned production, you got a 2,000 unit deficit that you need to start the year with. And 6, Charlie, demand management is defined as balancing all known demand forecasts and etc. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. I'll start on C1 tomorrow, and then Henry will run you through on Friday, and Livia will be here on Monday. See you guys.
sounds good. Thanks.
Yep.